welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm Chris Love.
And I'm Jane Mackey.
I'm Forrest Gump.
Chalk Talk is presented by US Sailing, who offer a college sailing membership to any college sailor. 4 years of US Sailing membership for just a tiny little fraction of the price, and you should go there and get it at racing.ussailing.org/college.
For this weekend review, first up we have the Mixer Champs sailed at Minnesota. 2 berths knocked down to 1 here, and Wisco wins undefeated after 1 day of sailing.
NISA Champs at Harvard. They had 3 berths, now they got 4. Brown wins, then BC, Roger Williams, and then Yale.
Tough break for Tufts. It came down to the last flight of the regatta, but Yale and Roger Williams tie to get that last remaining berth to nationals. Finally, for the weekend review, Nuixa has its championship for team racing, 1 berth, and UW goes 9-0 at Fern Ridge to take the spot at nationals.
Last chance to win this dope Harkin bag. It's a rolling duffel, pretty sweet, easy to travel with. Head over to Facebook and get in on the drawing. We'll be picking the winner on Monday, so hurry up.
Well, this weekend finishes off 5 weeks of conference championships. In all, we had 21 regattas qualifying for 77 spots to the postseason. Now, after semifinals, that number is knocked down to 59 different berths. Here's how it works out. 18 teams are headed to co-eds, 14 teams go to team racing, 9 to the women's finals, and 18 to the women's semifinals. The top half of that moves on to finals, which sails the next day.
Let's look at the Sperry Topsider College Sailing Women's National Champs, starting off with the semi-finals. They really keep us on the edge of our seats here right up until the end. We're still waiting to see which of these teams will qualify to move forward to nationals.
Looking good to qualify from the semis, you got to look at Tufts. A Division skipper Natalie Salk with crew Amelia Quinn are solid, and B Division has flashes of brilliance as well. URI has had a strong spring, especially in B Division with Christina Lewis and Margaret Craig. Con has got potential, but their A Division skipper Atlantic Brugman took the fall off and is missing her crew this year, and their B Division is always kind of mid-fleetish, so we'll see how they go. And Roger Williams has a good team, could do well. The NISA Quallers, they were missing a A Division crew, Rachel Perry, but look for them to be a little better here. Coast Guard, as we know, always does so well at the single-handed nationals. They're a bit young here. They've been a bit up and down in the spring, but if they sail to their potential, they could get it done as well. And for Brown, we know Sky Adams is always a top 5 threat, but she hasn't quite carried over her momentum from such a stellar B Division career last year. And their B Division this year still has a little bit of work to get up to speed, but Brown could certainly qualify.
And I think also duking it out for those 6 through 9 spots to get to nationals. You've got Cornell, so good at A Division, but still kind of working out the kinks in B Division. They're fast, they're well coached. I think they'll get there. ODU, who's used to sailing the FJs, and Hobart William Smith, who's not. They sail 420s, but Ariel DeLisser, big threat in A Division. USF, the host of this event, will be pleased to be sailing in their home waters now after several regattas and practice sessions at the hotel. Abby Featherstone, one to watch. A little bit stronger than the other host of this event, Eckerd. And finally, always a question mark flying in from many, many hours away is Hawaii. But remember, we saw them once in the spring at the St. Mary's Women's. They were right up there, finishing right behind Eckerd and 1 place ahead of Tufts and Con, showing that they can play in this league also.
With a chance for only 8 races in this one, look for teams to have a dominant B Division where skill level varies quite a bit more, as well as look for a handful of teams to try to get off to a huge start on the first day and just kind of hang on during the second day to qualify.
As for the main event, we have the top 9 teams from semi-finals joining the 9 teams that have already qualified from their district champs. Of those already qualified, Navy has had a stellar season. Mary Hall is phenomenal, and as Zeke reminds us every week, one to be watched, along with Marissa Lehan and B. Yale is stacked. Morgan Kiss can win 5 races in a row once she gets on a roll. Claire Dennis can win by minutes in races. Emily Billing can sail in any division, and Marlena Fowler is a force too. BC's Erica Reinecke has consistently wowed us with her low point scores, and Steph Hudson finally showed us her chops. We know she can win A Division, This is a pretty worthy team.
Stanford is always around the top 5, but we haven't really seen them put up that kind of performance lately. And then there's St. Mary's. We see them every year show up at nationals and do even better than they do in the regular season.
Georgetown should easily qualify out of the semis and give all these top teams a run for their money. Nancy Haygood has been phenomenal in A Division all season, and they've got a couple good B Division stars, so look for them to be up there. And let's not forget about Dartmouth, who hasn't spent much time on the water this spring because it's freezing cold wherever they're from. But they were unbelievable in the fall. Deirdre Lambert leads them in A Division, so watch for them to be tough.
Now, Jane, I remember back when I watched you win nationals for Yale back in San Francisco. That was the first year we had semifinals. So tell me, if you're one of these teams who qualifies directly to nationals, what is it like spending the first 2 days just watching from the sideline?
Well, Chris, when this happened to me in my final senior year of college, I actually missed graduation and I flew out to San Francisco and I sat on the shore to watch because for me, missing the first couple of days sailing really felt like I was missing out on something. You know, it ended up being weird in San Francisco because they sailed in a little bay which we never sailed in for the actual regatta. So that can be a little weird for the team sailing ahead of time. We were always in two minds about it. Some of the teams sailing in the semi-finals, were they getting more practice and therefore would they be better prepared for nationals, or would they be tired by the fourth day when they're trying to finally win after having sailed against all the variants of the different teams? So I think, you know, it's great to be there, it's great to watch it, and I think that is important as you prepare for nationals.
Jane, what about preparation leading into the nationals? Like when you were a senior, you guys were certainly a favorite to win, and you were certainly a favorite to win A Division. So how do you sort of show up to nationals with those expectations and try to perform?
I think it's the same thing that everyone does every weekend. You know, in college sailing, we're taught to sail in any boats, in any conditions, good or not good, and so that remains the same over the whole time.
How are you feeling right now?
Good! Yeah, Jane has to pee.
All right, a pretty good field here of women's talent. Who do you guys pick?
I am going to pick the midship women.
So surprising, Zeke. Well, I'm going to go with BC. I think they have the strongest chance of winning, and every time I pick Yale, they don't seem to win. So BC.
Hard to argue with BC's performance as of late, but I'm remembering back to the fall when Dartmouth was consistently mixing it up with BC and in fact beating them when it counts. So I'm counting on the Big Green to put in 2 hard weeks of practice and be ready to take the win at Women's Nationals. Next up, the College Sailing APS Team Race National Championship. And don't forget, Zeke and I will be on hand delivering live video with commentary the final 2 days of this event. We're at new.livestream.com/College Sailing Nationals. So the way this works, 14 teams qualified directly from their conference championships. They'll be split into 2 groups of 7 for round robins on the first day. From there, the top 8 advance to 2 gold rounds, followed by a final 4 to determine the champion.
Yeah, can't wait to be down there with you, buddy. Boy, this one sure is a tough one. So mentally challenging as the Team Race Nationals. The 3 days are so completely different. The first day always feels so weird because you're racing against some teams that you know you should absolutely beat, along with teams that are extremely good. And you know you're approaching it definitely trying to move on to the gold round, but it's important to remember that every win against gold teams counts just the same. So you know, a race on the first day counts the same as a race in the final 4. Then once the gold and silver split happens, you've got 8 teams in the gold round, and as far as I'm concerned, that's starting the most challenging team racing regatta on the face of the planet. All these teams are so evenly matched. You know, a team like Stanford, Georgetown, Charleston, Brown, and Yale, I'd say, are counting on moving into that gold round, while teams like BC, St. Mary's, Roger Williams, Hobart, and Navy, I think, are going to be vying for those last 3 spots into the gold round. Every team is going to go through some hot streaks and some cold streaks, winning races back-to-back and losing races back-to-back. It's going to be how those teams deal with it. So I think that BC, St. Mary's, and Roger Williams are going to round out that gold round. And then once we get into the gold round, everything is just brand new. All the racing that you've done all season as well as your whole career, it doesn't matter at this point. All these teams become so evenly matched. It's just who can get it done on that day. I view this round to actually be more important than the final 4 because it's where so much can be won and lost. and it's all becomes from the shoulders up. It's all about execution at this point, and being patient. We know that every team in the top 8 is going to be able to do it. There's no easy race. It's not like any other regatta that you go to all season, where you can race some good teams and then some teams you're going to beat. You're going to come off the water from a really heated 2-3-4 against Georgetown, and your coach is going to say, all right, we got Stanford next. You're like, great. There's just no gimmies. It's so tough, and it's so important to keep everything calm, cool, collected, and fun, most importantly. I can honestly say last year, as a member of the team that won, I stand by saying that the only reason we won is because we were the team that had the most fun there. There were times when we got absolutely smoked. There were times when we got some really lucky wins, but we just focused on having the most fun and being ourselves and poking fun at each other, and I think that's the only reason we were able to get it done. So, it's easy to stress out, especially when you're losing back-to-back races, but the teams that can just keep smiling, just keep having fun are going to be able to bounce back from those bad losses. So after the Final Four gets made out, teams can kind of take a deep breath. You sort of know about where you're going to end up finishing. And for the guys that do make the Final Four, you know how you match up against the other guys there. You're only worried about 3 other teams. You know the ones you match up well against and the ones that you don't. So you can kind of start game planning a little how you're going to race each team. So in my opinion, I think Stanford is going to go into the Final Four with just a small lead over Yale, CFC, and Brown. Now it's just all about controlling your nerves, staying out of fouling situations, and like I said, have fun. Some other things that are really important to keep in mind for this, pay attention to how the umpires are calling Rule 42. Last year they were calling it really, really, really strict, so get a feel early for how the umpires are going to call things. Talk to the umpires early. Stay out of fouling situations. You don't want to use the umpires if you don't have to. Rely on your boat speed and just do what you've done all season to be successful.
Speaking of Zeke Horowitz, good to see you. I know it's going to be tough out there with I
was working really hard.
Swim.
Yeah.
How you feeling?
Great. Never been better.
So, who do you guys think is going to get it done at the team racing?
I'm going with Yale. I think they can put it together.
Look, I said at the beginning of the season, I'm going to say it again, Stanford, this is their year. I know they were good leading up to last year's Nationals, and then they were disappointed they didn't even make the Final Four. But look, they are dominant, they are headstrong, they are experienced, and they are ready to get it done in St. Pete.
Well, I think everybody knows who I want to win that national championship. I'm going to go with a new tactic. I've been cursing them all season, so not picking the Cougars here. I think Brown stands a really good chance to come out of that Final Four. Great senior leadership. They just get a big win at NISA, so go Bears.
And finally, it's the College Sailing Gill Co-Ed National Championship to round off this year's Spring Nationals. Now, we haven't seen these teams fleet racing much since the fall, but semifinals was an awesome preview for this event. As we mentioned, Yale and Georgetown probably the most dominant. They're at the top of their games right now, with A-Division teams Graham Landy and Heather May from Yale, and Chris Barnard and Hillary Kenyon from Georgetown. Both looking at a strong possibility of capturing their division, winning the championship for their team, and taking home College Sailor of the Year. I think it's definitely a possibility, and we're going to be watching those. More on that next week. But then who can forget about that threat from the West we just talked about, Stanford. Incredibly deep and talented junior class who haven't really missed a step this season. They've got Kevin Labe, Kelly Ortel, Oliver Toole, Haley Kirk, and of course Hans Henkin, Rebecca King, Mateo Vargas, Tally Buckstaff, both getting a couple of races at semifinals, and they all look like they're ready to show up.
Those are the obvious ones, but then we've got question marks for a few other teams. First up, Roger Williams. It must be noted Alec Anderson and Alyssa Seifert have been on fire as of late. They posted the lowest score of any division at semifinals and have been stepping up as senior leaders of the team. But what about their B division? Well, William McDonald is still a wild card for them. Along with crew Bianca Rom and replacement skipper Alex Rudkin, these guys have been finishing sort of mid-fleet in the NISA regattas. So who knows, with a couple of weeks left training, can they whip their B division into shape?
Yes, I think that's a very fair analysis from both of you. I look at a team like Roger Williams with Alec Anderson in A division as a team that could win, but I think they're relying on help from other teams in the form of a team like Yale, Stanford, or Georgetown sort of not really having a great performance in one division and letting Roger Williams take advantage of that. Another team like that I think is Brown with a similar situation. Colin Smith had an unbelievable fall, beating a lot of these guys at a lot of A-Division events, and they've got pretty solid B division as well and some seniors. So I think that if they pull it together, some other teams struggle a little bit, Brown is another one of those teams that could get it done.
Well, Old Dominion only really showed us their teeth last weekend, but they have to be mentioned after that incredible performance at semifinals. Seniors Dylan Pava sailing with Chloe Constance and his brother Cooper Pava in A division, and then Esteban Forer, the freshman, with Julia Weisner in B division. Just looking spectacular down in Hampton. So assuming these guys are still on their end of season peak, I think they have to be talked about and are going to enter the conversation at Nationals. And then, of course, there's BC. Who are they going to sail besides Raul Rios? They've been kind of a one-division team all year. Now we've got some ladies available. Will they sail Erica Reinecke, Steph Hudson, or will they keep going back to their co-ed skippers? We're going to have to wait and see. And then just a few more teams that have really, been there throughout the season, but haven't been mentioned so far. We've got Dartmouth, Hobart Williams Smith, Navy, College of Charleston, MIT, St. Mary's, and Tufts. A very, very deep regatta this year. I'm excited to see it.
And Chris, it's kind of hard for me to tell when I'm being biased and when I'm not, but my heart sort of breaks a little bit with you putting the Cougars here in this list and not mentioning them as a threat. I realize they've been struggling lately, but they've had not a horrible season. They won the Navy Fall. They did pretty well at the Trucks until things sort of fell apart in A division. And they're certainly not peaking right now. But look at their talent. Juan Magley, Ben Spector, Mac Mace, Chris Bonholzer, Jake Reynolds. Those are all really good sailors, potential All-Americans that are going to be riding the bench. So let's not leave them out of the conversation.
Hey, Zeke, I call it like I see it. If you want to tell us otherwise, why don't you give us your picks?
Okay, well, I'm not going to pick them again because I've been cursing them. I'm going to go with Stanford. They've been there all season. They've proved me wrong a lot, so I think Stanford's going to get this win.
That's what I thought, Zeke. I'm taking Georgetown. College Sailor of the Year coming back to do it again.
Both great choices, but this is not the time in the season and in our prediction contest to follow suit. I'm going with Yale, the other contender for this regatta.
Well, we've got just one more episode left in the season, and it's a doozy. Join us next week for a very special episode where we take a look at potential College Sailor of the Year and All-Americans.
Good luck to teams practicing for Nationals.
It's my boat.
For the weekend review, MCSA has its championship. Not even close. And finally, for the weekend review, Nuixa has...
On the first day, really important to try to avoid 2 losses in a row, and it's really important to take advantage of those easier races. So I'm holding a watch. That was dumb.